presenting our research report on the sustainable development and electrification of transit. This project was led by Principal Investigator Sarah Diamond from Oakhead University with funding from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada and in partnership with CUTRIC, the Canadian Transit Research and Innovation Consortium. This presentation is being led by me, Amy Burnett, a graduate researcher on this project. Before we get started, we wish to acknowledge the land on which Oakhead University operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. The United Nations has identified sustainability goals intended to address our climate crisis. Change in transportation practices are a significant feature in climate change mitigation. If achieved, ZEB impacts are far-reaching: reduction of emissions and particulates, improved quality of urban life through less pollution and noise, improved health of residents, more equitable and affordable reach and choice of transit, industry growth, and green job creation. Secondary benefits include densification and cost reductions for the healthcare system. We began our research by framing the needs of stakeholders in the ZEB implementation space. With these needs in mind, we asked, what are best practices, lessons learned, and indicators of success, as well as critical gaps in research, data, tools, and policy needed to affect environmental, economic, social, equity, and health drivers to support the implementation of ZEB transit infrastructure. The methods we chose to define our research process included primary and secondary approaches to data gathering. We conducted a systematic literature review, extracted data and tools from multiple sources to create indexes, and conducted interviews and workshops with 34 expert participants. We used In Vivo, a thematic analysis software, to identify emerging themes and generate insights. There are a few general considerations that carry through this research report. Firstly, expanded transit use remains an overarching goal, as it takes more personal vehicles off the road, including electric vehicles. Public transit reduces congestion, has a positive impact on GHG emissions, and fares finance transit. While the GHG reduction benefits of public transportation electrification is less than commercial fleets, it is important that public transit play a leadership role. Second, it's important to note that ZEB is disruptive. New infrastructures are complex. Implementation demands process and management changes that necessitate careful planning. It is difficult for agencies to decide which technology to choose, and there is a lack of standardization of equipment. Yet ZEB adoption, whether battery electric buses or hydrogen fuel cell electric buses, is transformative and could result in long-term cost savings, fare reductions, and improved transit services and healthier communities. It is a core pillar in Canada's overall transition away from fossil fuel dependencies. Our analysis of the materials and data generated a series of insights and recommendations. Firstly, ZEB adoption is most successful when integrated within a holistic planning process that modernizes transit systems. It will be important to stabilize public transit while it recovers during and after COVID-19 and support efforts to rebuild ridership. Economic cost-benefit analyses should expand to include indirect savings from cleaner air and fewer emissions, and the social benefits of an expanding ridership. We must also address the short-term barriers of capital expenses to allow long-term savings and operational cost reductions. Practically, this means assessing and monitoring ROI and lifecycle costs related to electrification. Long-term stable funding and government collaboration is necessary to sustain a ZEB transition. We heard many times that we need a wheels to wells approach to address full cycle environmental benefits. This includes analysis of battery life cycles and a cyclical economy for ZEB. There is a need to align grid updates and clean electricity investment with adoption and to consider the viability of hydrogen as an efficient alternative for colder climates. Accessible ZEB public transit can support access to jobs, healthcare services, and education. We recommend a focused ZEB rollout on low-income, high-use populations and underserved areas, and looking critically at EV subsidy programs that only benefit the already upper class. We need consistent methods of understanding the true environmental impacts of ZEB implementation using consistent formulae. We need clear federal and provincial GHG reduction policies with dates and targets so we can drive and measure adoption. The most polluted neighborhoods are those with heavy public transit and bus use. Exhaust pollutants and noise pollution impact mental and physical health. Improvements in noise and air quality support disease reduction targets and provide cost benefits to healthcare systems. Indigenous leaders are aware of these emerging technologies and environmental benefits, but already lack basic transportation infrastructure. It will be important to support investment in Indigenous communities' sustainable and green transit infrastructure in partnership with those Indigenous communities. Government and industry can position Canada as an innovation, industry, and circular economy leader in ZEB by working with diverse stakeholders. The talent to support this positioning can be grown through skills retraining and PSE programs. And lastly, it will be important to develop a sustainable transit planning index so that cross-sectoral actors can use data to plan, implement, and monitor environmental, economic, and social metrics. Continued research in our core thematic categories, operational planning, environmental, economic, social, equity, and health factors is needed. We've identified areas where research might be conducted in order to further ZEB investment and adoption. Uptake and impact of this research will be defined by the strength of research collaboration and translation between academic researchers, industry professionals, and policymakers. Our research indicated that there is a clear need for more Canadian data sources. Here we've identified data gaps like diesel performance and up-to-date socioeconomic demographic data. We've also highlighted strong existing data collection models like the Transportation Tomorrow Survey in Toronto and Qutrix ACE's Big Data Trust. In addition to data, tools are required to enact projects related to ZEB implementation. Key categories identified in our research were lifecycle tools, systems and fleet management, simulation tools like digital twins, financial modeling, and sustainable development transit indices. This diagram visualizes environmental, economic, and social factors to enable an intersectional analysis and better understanding of the dependencies needed to facilitate positive outcomes. We plan to provide an interactive tool that enables stakeholders to generate relevant correlations between data, tools, and literature regarding key factors in ZEB implementation by the end of this coming March. The future of ZEB projects is bright in Canada. There are many opportunities to become a key player in the ZEB supply chain and to position Canada as a leader. The most significant barrier to ZEB adoption is the cost of implementation of ZEB purchases, related infrastructure costs, and energy sources. Trials, pilots, and well-planned staging continue to play an important role in effective implementation and overcoming of these funding barriers. Leaders in the space like Qutrix fill critical gaps and shine a light on areas for development. Their valuable efforts, including mobilizing a cross-sectoral alliance, providing planning tools, and creating a data trust, demonstrate pathways to advancing ZEB across the country. Thanks so much, and for more information, please use this link to read the report in full.